Ruth chapter 4, I'll be reading the entire chapter. Hear the word of the Lord. And now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, "Turn aside, friend, sit down here." And he turned aside and sat down, and he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. Then he said to the Redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me that I may know, for there is no one besides you to redeem it, and I come after you." And he said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "The day that you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance." Then the Redeemer said, "I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem it." Now, this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was the manner of attesting in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself," he drew off his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon, also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day." Then all the people who were in the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron, Hezron fathered Ram, Ram fathered Aminadab, Aminadab fathered Nahshon, Nahshon fathered Salmon, Salmon fathered Boaz, Boaz fathered Obed, Obed fathered Jesse, and Jesse fathered David. May the Lord add his blessings to the reading of his holy word. Well, have you gotten your shopping done? Do you have what you need for Christmas? For many people this time of year is a struggle to ascertain what they should get for those they buy gifts for. You ask yourself, well, what do they need? What do they want? They want an something, a game system. If they're a child, they want a toy that they've seen others playing with and want one of their own. Do you get them what they want, or do you get them what they need? Well, are you struggling with what to give for Christmas? If so, wanting to be a full-service church, giving you everything that you need, let me give you good housekeeping recommendations for some of the best Christmas gifts this year. Got it? You may need to write this down. First, a Lululemon Everywhere belt bag, which is a belt with a bag kind of not just attached to it, but in the middle of it. It is meant to be worn strapped kind of diagonally across the chest, and is for, quote, that sibling who can never find their phone, keys, or wallet. It's $38 from Lululemon, or only $23 at Walmart. You can get a custom neon sign with someone's name on it, so they can put it in their window, tell everyone so-and-so lives here. For only $27 at Amazon. Or there's Orastone rechargeable hand warmers for that, quote, loved one whose hands are always cold in the winter. It's $24 from Amazon. It's a little more at Walmart. Of course, if you're older, you probably don't want any of that. And even if you did want it, you'd go out and buy it for yourself already. why you would wait till just Christmas comes along to get it if you really need it. I don't know why you would do that, but some people do. Maybe you would like you see in some commercials, a new car with a huge red ribbon on top. You ever got one of those? I don't think anyone's ever gotten that. It's just a commercial thing. I've never seen anyone in real life get a car for Christmas. But I bet with some commercials, selling us on the idea, I bet you there are a few people that are trying that. Of course, the things that you really want are not what can be bought and packaged and given for Christmas. We say it's so difficult to get him or her a gift because as people mature, they realize that there's a difference between what they want and what they need. And more, if they are mature, what they want, what they need, and usually not much else. Well, here in Ruth, we've seen what Naomi really wants and needs. She had to go off to the neighboring country of Moab with her husband, Elimelech, to avoid a famine in Israel. She needed to eat, so she had to go there in chapter 1. And there in Moab, Elimelech dies, and then her 2 sons die, leaving her alone with 2 daughters-in-law. Naomi tells them to go back home to their parents, and from there seek rest. That's what she says they need. The security of a new family. Now one agrees, but the other, Ruth, famously says no and professes, where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people. Your God, my God. That is steadfast love. But Naomi can't see it yet. And so she cries to the ladies of Bethlehem when she gets back that the Lord has brought her back empty. It just happens to be at the beginning of barley harvest, and Ruth goes out to glean the scraps and just happens to find the field of Boaz, who just so happens to be a redeemer. That is, he could keep the family name going. Naomi and Ruth realized this, and so Ruth asked him to do that very thing with her. She didn't have to, just like she didn't have to stay loyal to Naomi, but she did. She asked Boaz, spread your wings over your servant. So Boaz remarks that this last act of steadfast love, seeking the redemption of the family, the future of Naomi and of the name of Elimelech, this last steadfast love is even greater than the first, the famous declaration of steadfast love in Moab. So Boaz, a lover of love, agrees, I will do for you all that you ask. Talk about getting what you want. But there's a problem. There's a redeemer nearer than I, Boaz says. And that means that there was another relative who was more closely related to the deceased Elimelech, and so he was first in line to, quote, redeem Naomi and Ruth and their land. So he gets the first shot, if he wants it. Now we're wondering whether Boaz will get what he wants. Will you get what you want or need for Christmas? You probably don't really need an everywhere belt bag or a custom neon sign or an eye whatever or a new car with a huge red ribbon on top. I don't need that. I might want it though, but I don't need it. The original Christmas was not about giving cute accessories or gadgets or luxuries we want but don't need. It was all about what we need most. And the book of Ruth ends not just with a happy ending of our favorite characters getting what they want. It ends with them getting what they need and what we need. We see that here in 3 parts. Oh, come all ye faithful. Second, what child is this? And finally, joy to the world. Well, first, oh, come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. And witness Boaz seeking to be a redeemer. Boaz goes to the gate of Bethlehem. He sits down. It's like a crossroads, the gate where everyone comes in and out, like a town square. You can meet anyone you want if you wait long enough, coming and going. He's looking for one particular man, a relative of his who is more closely related to the departed Elimelech than he is. And in verse 1, look, there he is, the first redeemer. So Boaz calls out to him, oh, come, all you faithful. Turn aside, friend. Sit down here. And Boaz gathers 10 leading men of the city. Come ye, and asks them to sit as witnesses. And so with the scene set, he makes his proposal. First, redeemer number 1. Naomi has returned from Moab and is selling her husband Elimelech's land. Remember, Israel was given the land by the Lord. It was portioned out to the tribes and then the families of Israel and was supposed to stay in those families. So instead of being able to put it on the open market, put it for sale to anyone who wants to buy it. They were supposed to first let their relatives have the first shot at buying the land. That's what Boaz is doing here. Do you, Mr. Redeemer number one, want to buy Elimelech's field? If you do, well then do it. If not, I get the second shot, Boaz is saying. In verse 4, Redeemer number one says, I will redeem it. And why not? Sounds good. More land. Then Boaz says, like a TV ad, but wait, there's more. Buy it now. And you get Ruth the Moabite. Operators are standing by. It's a package deal. You buy one, you get the other. That may not sound so bad, especially if you've seen her all washed and perfumed with her cloak on. But notice in verse 5, Redeemer number one gets her for a specific purpose. She's the widow of the dead. She's the one you have to redeem by marrying her so you can produce another son to carry on the name of Elimelech. Not your name, mind you, Elimelech. That was the purpose of the institution. Keep the name of the dead man alive so that his family will continue. It's not for you to get whatever you want, a hot new wife, but for the family, including the dead family members, to get what they need. Perpetuation. The family to live on. This is a demonstration of what the whole book of Ruth is about. What Ruth has brilliantly shown twice, pledging herself to Naomi, where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. That's steadfast love. I'm going to keep you alive. I'm going to perpetuate the name of your family, Elimelech, and yourself. Then she did it again in seeking Boaz, even when there were younger and richer men around, precisely because he was a redeemer. That's why she went after him. Ruth expresses steadfast love. Now it's the turn of the redeemer, Boaz, to do it. So Boaz is explaining here, you have to marry her to keep the family of the dead alive. Hence, show steadfast love. That's the challenge to this unnamed Redeemer number one. So that's the deal, Mr. Redeemer number one. And that last part of the bargain for him, it changes everything. First he was like, that's good, but then wait, other woman? First, when it was just about getting another field, that sounded great. That's what farmers want, right? You get more land means more crops, which means more harvest, which means more money. Now, sure, he has to pay Naomi for it, but since she's too old to have any children, she won't be having any other heirs to whom he'd have to give the land back to when they grow up. Remember, the land stays in the family. But Ruth is another thing altogether. If she has a son, the son gets the land when he grows up. And so Mr. Redeemer number one, he's probably a good businessman, is thinking, I'm being asked to pay for land that I may only get to only temporarily use until maybe a child grows up, and then it goes to him, and he's not even considered technically my family, my descendant. That's a bad deal. I don't like this deal. So Redeemer number one concludes in verse 6, I cannot redeem it for myself lest I impair my own inheritance. In other words, this man had some property, some wealth, some capital that would be risk if he married Ruth. He might lose it. He doesn't want to lose it. His love of money was more than his steadfast love for his family. This is probably why we aren't told his name. Right? He could be the one who saved the name of Elimelech if he had steadfast love. But since he loved his property more, his name is lost. Because he wouldn't perpetuate the name of his relative, his name won't be perpetuated. And notice particularly why he won't redeem. He tells us himself, his own words, he had possessions. I have a property of my own. I'll lose my inheritance. He cared more for the things he had than he did for steadfast love. He sounds like another man in the Bible whose name we don't know. The rich young ruler. He seemed like a sincere, right, religious and moral man. Came to Jesus, seriously asking, what must I do to enter the kingdom of God? And Jesus said, well, you need to sell all that you have, give to the poor, and come and follow me. But he wouldn't do that. And it says he wouldn't do it because he loved his possessions. He loved his somethings, his game systems, his brand new cars with huge red ribbons on top. His name in neon lights, maybe. His fine suits, his house, his big bank account. He loved all that. So he slinked away unredeemed. Here, the unnamed man loved whatever it was he had, his inheritance. He loved it so much that he was not willing to become a redeemer. He's an unredeemer. Too bad for him, but it works out best for everyone else, doesn't it? Especially us. And so the man who had intentionally passed on his right of redemption, he takes off his shoe, seems like an odd custom, his sandal, and gives it to Boaz. But whatever, that's not the kind of thing you do casually or accidentally. Right? You might shake someone's hand just as out of instinct, but you wouldn't take off your shoe and give it to someone just for no reason. So it's a sign, it's a signal to all the witnesses that he is attesting that he has given up his redemption rights, that he really has made this decision. And that makes it would serve to us like a signature on a contract, something like that. And that makes Boaz next in line. And Boaz has no such qualms. Boaz has property too, and he could reason, I suppose, like the first guy, that he doesn't want to impair his inheritance, as he put it. But Boaz has what Ruth has: steadfast love, faithfulness. He loves redemption more than riches. And so he's willing to redeem, no matter the expense, no matter the potential loss. He's joyful and triumphant. So Boaz declares to the witnesses, starting in verse 9, in Bethlehem, "O come, all you faithful witnesses. You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon, also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife." Why? Why did he do this? What did he want? What did he need? It wasn't just romance. Sometimes this story is told was a great love story. Yeah, in a way it is. But it wasn't just romance that he wanted or needed. Something higher, something greater. Steadfast love. In verse 10, he tells us why. To perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from his brothers and from the gate of his native place. Notice nothing there about him. It's like, because I really like her, she's cute. Nothing like that. To perpetuate the name of the dead. But the dead are no longer around. They don't care. But he cares. He has steadfast love. He did it for the same reason Ruth made her pledge to Naomi back in Moab. He came to Bethlehem and bargained to be the Redeemer because he's faithful. He declared again, "You are witnesses this day." And the elders of the people respond, "We are witnesses." And then the witnesses say, kind of as a chorus, right? A lot of churches have Christmas cantatas. Here's a chorus speaking up in verse 11. "May the Lord make this woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel." Saying this like in unison. They probably only meant that may she be fertile like them. Between the two of them, including their maids, they produced 12 sons and at least one daughter. And from them came the 12 tribes and the whole nation of Israel. But their words were inspired and they meant more than they knew. Or at least the one who inspired them meant more than they knew. "May Ruth, the Moabite, the foreigner, the one from the world, not from Israel, literally, become a mother to the true Israel, the people of God. From her may God's people come." So she did. A woman from the nations, from the world, gave us a Redeemer, a King, who would save people from the world. Well, they're not finished. The witnesses chorus continues in verse 11. "May you, Boaz, act worthily in Ephrathah." Here they're challenging him. Ephrathah, that's the region they live in, kind of like a county or a state. "And be renowned in Bethlehem." Boaz has been so far a worthy man. And so they're challenging him, continue being worthy, act worthily, continually. "We have our eye on you, Boaz," they're saying. "We are witnesses that you are worthy, and you continue that way, that you be a faithful Redeemer, that you don't abuse Ruth. And this is why we do weddings in public, that you will keep these vows, that you will not just have romantic love, but steadfast love, that you will be faithful, you will be worthy. Now, if you do, Boaz, you will be renowned." Boy, that turned out true, didn't it? "We have our eye on you," they're saying. This chorus of the elders, the witnesses of Bethlehem, the faithful. But we're for you. We're watching you, but we're for you. We're not suspicious, but we're for you. We want your house, your family to be blessed. That's why we go to weddings for. Not just to look at the dresses and the ceremony, but to say, we're for you. May you be blessed. We're challenging them. Act worthily. Keep your vows. Love, steadfast love. Then in verse 11, may your house be like the house. The witnesses, the chorus, challenging him again. Or this time blessing them, I should say. Blessing him. May your house, your family, be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. We want your house to be like Perez's family. Remember that story, maybe, vaguely, from Genesis? Perez was the child of a redeemed woman, too. There are actually blessings that make children come from this redeemed woman, Ruth. Perez was the child, the son of a redeemed woman like Ruth. The woman was Tamar. Now, Tamar was inadvertently redeemed, the nicest way I could put it. In a sordid story in Genesis chapter 38. Remember Tamar? She was widowed, like Naomi and Ruth here. And she took action, like Naomi and Ruth do, to get a redeemer. Now, her actions were immoral, but when the patriarch Judah wanted to punish her for her immorality, she revealed that he was the one she was immoral with, and so she wasn't punished. Ruth and Naomi's ploy was just improper, the laying down on his feet and the floor, whatever. That's kind of improper, but so we can excuse that though. Further, Boaz understood the threat of family extinction that weighed on Naomi and Ruth, and he loved the steadfast love that Ruth had that caused her to act, that caused her to follow Naomi and to seek now him. And so he loved that. Boaz loved that. He respected that. And so he took responsibility as the Redeemer so that Elimelech's family would not be blotted out. Additionally, both Tamar and Ruth were not Israelites. They were non-Israelites. They became integrated into Israel. They became part of Israel eventually, but through marriage, they became one of the people of God. Now for Tamar, the Canaanite, she cares more for carrying on the family of Judah than does Judah, the man. The result is the son, Perez, and from them came most of the descendants of Judah. Most of these people here in Bethlehem. And through that comes the promise that God will multiply the descendants of Abraham. That is at least partially fulfilled through Tamar, of all things. Well, for Ruth, your people will be my people. Her commitment, that leads her to Bethlehem, which leads her to Boaz, which keeps the family going. And what will come from that family? The witnesses say, may you, Boaz and Ruth, build up the people of God through the offspring that you have, just like Tamar did. May you build up the people of God. May the true Israel come from you. May the Lord give you offspring, they say, who will give the world the king of the kingdom of God, they unknowingly say. The result, second, in verses 13 to 17, what child is this? Boaz and Ruth were married. As I said last week, the Bible is frank and open about sex. We see that in verse 13. So there's no reason to try to read between the lines and think it's trying to be coy and hiding it from us. What is unusual here, I'm not sure it's different, but it's boldly put here, is the statement of where the child came from. The Lord gave her, Ruth, conception. It's not an accident of biology. It's not the world of nature acting on its own. It's kind of out of control. No, the Lord is in charge of this, as he was with everything. He was in charge of the famine and when they could have food again. He's in charge of this conception, as he is with every conception, every birth, every child. Ruth gives birth to a son, and to that comes another chorus. This time a chorus of the ladies of Bethlehem. Remember the ladies of Bethlehem? The same ladies in chapter 1 that Naomi told that the Lord has brought me back empty. She told those ladies of Bethlehem. And there they don't say anything. They're silent. They've been keeping their silence until now. Now they speak up, starting in verse 14. Blessed be the Lord. Oh, you said he was against you. You said he brought you back empty, Naomi. No. Bless the Lord. Say good things about him. Since he gave us what we really wanted and needed, a child. The Lord has not left you, Naomi, this day, the birthday of a new son, without a redeemer. The Lord did it. Not Naomi's crazy plan of lying down at Boaz's feet. I'm sure the plan worked, but it was the Lord's doing. Just because you strategize and you work at something and you boldly risk everything and it pays off, that doesn't mean that it's not totally in the hands of the sovereign God. El Shaddai. Naomi had cried that she was empty, but now the Bethlehem ladies chorus responds. Now's their time to talk back to her. That the Lord has not left you without a redeemer, Naomi. You're not empty anymore, are you? Well, who is the redeemer? Well, Boaz was the redeemer. But the child changes everything. Notice verse 14. Naomi, the Lord has given you a redeemer. We assume that is Boaz. They're talking about Boaz. Because he was the redeemer. Pay attention. Now the redeemer is the one who gives the family new life, who inherits the property, who perpetuates the name, who keeps hope alive. May his, as yet unannounced, name be renowned in Israel. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Boaz was to be renowned. Now may the redeemer's name be renowned, like the first witnesses chorus said. Verse 11, now this new redeemer be renowned. But the redeemer here, starting in verse 14, notice carefully who he is. The ladies' chorus tells us at the end of verse 15, for your daughter-in-law has given birth to him, the redeemer. What child is this? Well, the Bethlehem ladies' chorus tells us he's the redeemer. In verse 15, he, the baby boy, shall be to you, Naomi, a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. He's what you want and what you need, Naomi. And he is that because your daughter-in-law who loves you, she's proven that. Not just words, not by cards, by her actions. The same one who sat beside you when you cried how empty you were. Remember? She probably gave Naomi a tissue. The beginning of barley harvest. She's more to you than 7 sons. That's lofty praise in that culture. More to you than a perfect number of sons. But after all, she, Ruth, has given birth to him who is now the Redeemer. So now the office or the title of Redeemer has been passed down from Boaz to the baby. And it will continue being passed down until it reaches the one who will redeem all of God's people, all of God's family. What child is this? Well, he's the Redeemer, and he redeems the family, Naomi's family, Elimelech's line, and the name will not disappear because of this child. Naomi takes the child, lays him in her lap, serves as his nurse. So proud of him was she. The ladies of Bethlehem, so happy for her, gave the boy his name, Obed, meaning servant. A humble name, but right for a boy who served to redeem his family and carry on a family that would serve the world. What child is this? Laid to rest on Naomi's lap is sleeping, whom ladies greet with anthems sweet, while Boaz watch is keeping. What child is this? The token of a happy ending for a sweet domestic romantic story? Yeah, all that, sure, but much, much more. The child that looked up and saw Grandma and Naomi would one day look down and see grandson David. And through all this, through a woman from the nations, from the world, God brought his king. And that king, by the way, would later write in Psalm 36, ascribed to David, the servant of the Lord. How precious is your steadfast love, O God. The children of mankind take refuge in the shadow of your wings. Where do you think David got those themes from? What child is this? Well, he's the grandfather of the king. Remember that Elimelech and Naomi lived during the time of the judges when there was no king in Israel. When God was supposed to be their king, Elimelech's name means, my God is king. This child sleeping on Naomi's lap would be the grandfather of the king God would promise would have a son who would never cease to rule. The birth of that king comes through this line, this family, from Ruth, the foreigner, the woman of the nations, from the world outside of Israel, and Boaz, the faithful Redeemer. Third, the birth of that king, from the world, for the world, would give joy to the world. That's what that last genealogy shows in verses 18 to 22. You read these genealogies, your eyes glaze over, a list of names, what this is about. Why should I care? It shows us that he comes from one son, born through redemption, Perez, saving his family through another, Obed, to Jesse, to David, the king, beyond to the son of David, Jesus Christ. You might think, well, okay, what does this have to do with me? It's a nice story and all. Sweet, sure. But I don't really care. It's an old family. It's nothing to do with my life. But many people in many cultures have understood that keeping the family name going is not just what they want, it's what they need. Now, Christian missionaries found Chinese ancestor veneration hard to break through because Chinese ancestor veneration was so tied in to perpetuating the family name, keeping the family going. So they naturally thought the two went together. Now, some Chinese people would accuse Christianity of being what they call the ancestor-denying religion. You're not supposed to worship the ancestors, Christians would say. Oh, you mean we're supposed to let our family die off? That's the way they would think. Keeping the family going is so important in traditional Chinese culture, it literally made a religion out of it. Filial piety. Much more the real religion of China than Buddhism or Taoism. The urge to keep one's lineage alive, carry on the family name, can lead to ancestor veneration. Honoring ancestors through rituals like offering food and burning incense, the joss sticks, maintaining ancestral tablets or graves. It can, doesn't have to. More practically, here, like in Ruth, family members should have children, the assumption is, who pass down the family name for future generations. That is the need many people all around the world feel. So Chinese culture in particular is geared to getting people to fulfill that need. And the Israelites were the same. They felt the same need, just without the ancestor veneration. So you don't need ancestor veneration if you have a Redeemer. What child is this? He's the one who will redeem the family from oblivion. Okay. So Boaz and Ruth are good examples of keeping Naomi's family alive. Got it. But still, why do I care? Is it just a good example that I should follow? No, they're not just a good example of filial piety, which traditional Chinese and others should love. It's much more than that. It's more than that because this is not just any family. This is the family. The one Ruth and Boaz redeems by giving us Obed. This is the family who gives us the Redeemer, who creates the family of God. Why should you care? This isn't just a good moral lesson on steadfast love or filial piety. It's the story of where the King and the Redeemer and where the family of God comes from. It's the backstory to Christmas. It's not just an old story of how God, El Shaddai, saved a family. It's about how He saved you. Family tree seems like a boring way to end a lovely, sweet domestic love story. It's a list of names. But it's so much more than that. It's about getting what we need. The King. The one who creates a new family. The family of God. From whom every family on earth is named. It's about how my God is King, Elimelech. After he died, brings the King God anointed to fulfill his promises, redeeming not only that family, but all of God's family. This is the story of how God brought his King and our Redeemer. And that's what we needed above all else. Not only David, but the son of David, the one whose genealogy includes all these names here, Ruth and Boaz and David. the one who comes from a mother from the world to give a Redeemer for the world, to redeem the people of God out of the world. So, joy to the world. The Lord is come. Let earth receive her King.